this. It is a breathtakingly sweeping assertion of executive power that he simply does not have. I mean, I guess you might say, welcome to all of his executive orders. But the idea that the President of the United States thinks he can essentially restructure our elections, he can essentially aggregate to himself power that belongs in the Constitution itself, to the states and to Congress by name, Congress, that he can aggregate, he can say, I am going to decide what the election rules are. To me, and here I want you to put on your lawyer hat, but really also your political prognosticator hat. To me, this just shows how worried he is about the 2026 midterms. That you're right, the courts right now are standing up to him. But the thing he really worries about, and this is what I genuinely believe, and I wrote about this in Democracy Nugget, but I think it's exactly, I have as much conviction about this as anything else. He is worried that Democrats are going to retake the House in 2026. And it is one thing for Jim Jordan to have a gavel. It's one thing for Andy Biggs to have a gavel. It is a whole other kettle of fish for Jamie Raskin and Dan Goldman to have gavels. It is a whole other kettle of fish if you guys are in a position to do oversight or to set or to enact legislation, to send, to move legislation forward. And so to me, he is brittle. He is weak in the area of elections because he knows that what he's doing right now is not popular. He knows that, you look at the recent election for state legislature in Pennsylvania, where a Democrat won in a seat that Democrats have not won in over a century. And he is afraid. And so what he is trying to do is to, he's always been an election denier. He's always been a vote suppressor, but that he is trying to lay the groundwork now to try to make it harder to vote going into 2026, make it easier for Republicans to hold power in the midterms. And I wonder if that's your perspective on this executive order, or you just think it's just another, like, Donald Trump, I called his executive order performance art. Like, it doesn't read like a legal document. It doesn't read like, it reads like it's just like he dictated it and it got put on paper.
Well, in our last discussion about law firms, you made the point you thought it was a little bit more nefarious and a little bit deeper than what I was saying. I'm going to flip that on its head with you. I think this has less to do with the 2026 elections and is much more consistent and in line with what is very clearly an effort for Donald Trump to take over the federal government. And you can call it a dictatorship, you can call it authoritarianism, you can call it, tyrannicism, fascism, whatever you want. But the idea is that Donald Trump is trying to absolutely eliminate our democracy. And I'm sure some of your listeners are going to be like, oh, this is so, let's not overstate it. Let's not do it. Well, let's take a look at the things that he's done. First of all, pardoned every single January 6th defendant. Mm-hmm. He has now created
every single one of them. Every one of them, right? The ones who assaulted cops, all of them.
I mean, there were about 500 who were convicted either because they admitted it or a jury found them guilty of assaulting law enforcement officers from the party that ostensibly is all about law enforcement and backing the blue. But what that did is it created a violent militia that will operate at the direction of Donald Trump. He then installed the most unqualified, unmeritorious, the irony of hearing Pete Hegseth say that the Department of Defense is going to focus just on merit-based hiring when he is so far and away the most unqualified Secretary of Defense ever. It burns me up. But he puts in these hacks, these lackeys, who he knows are totally beholden to him, and that's their only qualification, to take over the FBI, to take over our national intelligence, to take over our Department of Defense. Okay, so now he's got all the powerful vessels of government at his control. So what else? Well, there are independent inspectors general at a lot of these agencies who can cause some problems for him because they are removed from the political appointees of those agencies. But let's just fire all of them. Oh, and then the one that we didn't fire who actually came out with a report that was critical, I don't like that report. I'm going to fire him. Okay, now they're going after judges. He is going after every single form of accountability and democracy. And what he is laying the foundation for is a complete usurpation of power. He threatens senators with primaries, with Elon Musk putting hundreds of millions of dollars in order for them to vote against their own knowledge and instincts to support his unqualified candidates. Congress has just completely caved to him, given all Article 1 power, all congressional authority over to Trump. And that's why he's going after the judiciary. It's the last check. But so this is just yet another step in his effort to, he's not going to declare himself a dictator. He's going to try to do exactly what Vladimir Putin has done. There still are ostensibly elections in Russia.
Yep.
Right? But they're bogus. We know that. And so that's what he is laying the foundation to try to do. And even if he knows that this executive order is completely lawless, is completely baseless, and is far outside of his authority, what he has realized from other executive orders, that some of which we discussed, is that even if there's no basis in law for him to do it, he can intimidate people into submit to his will. And so you'll go to court on this executive order. A lot of other people will go to court, and the law is on your side. But even if you win, he has sent a message, and he has laid down a marker that he's coming after the people who administer our elections. And it may not be as drastic as what his executive order says, but he is going to chip away at our elections because he just simply does not want to face the voters. And that's why I think he is pushing forward with such an outrageous executive order.
Representative Dan Goldman, you are always my first go-to whenever we have the troubled problems of Donald Trump and the law and Congress. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Defending Democracy. Please stay informed on the latest voting rights and democracy news by signing up to our free newsletters. We'll see you next time.